The clock read 10:43 p.m. when I stepped onto the most luxurious penthouse of the Burj Al Arab. My name is Connor Miller, 27 years old, and I work as a waiter at one of the most exclusive hotels in Dubai. I wasn't supposed to be here. Waiters, like me, normally never leave the main service area, but today I got special instructions to personally deliver a bottle of Chateau Petrus 1982 to this floor. "Mr. Harrison specifically requested you," my supervisor said, his expression mixing curiosity and worry. As I adjusted my flawless uniform, I had no idea that this delivery would completely change the course of my life. If you've ever wondered what it's like to cross the line between being invisible and becoming the center of attention for one of the most powerful men in the world, keep watching. Trust me, you're gonna want to know how this story ends. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like for more stories like this. My life in Dubai was simple, despite the stunning scenery. I got up at 5:30 every day in the small apartment I shared, with 3 other hotel staff members, located 40 minutes away from work by public transport. The contrast was brutal. I spent my days serving meals that cost more than my monthly salary in settings decorated with 24-karat gold. In my spare time, I used to wander through the traditional markets, soaking in the aroma of spices in the air and watching the ballet of black abayas sliding between the shops. I worked hard for a distant dream, saving up enough to open my own restaurant someday. At night, I'd crunch numbers on a worn-out spreadsheet, trying to balance overdue bills with the money I sent to my mom in the United States. The numbers always led me back to the same discouraging conclusion. It would take decades to achieve my goals. "Connor, right?" A deep voice with a slight accent cut through the silence of the presidential suite. Alexander Harrison, a 45-year-old Arab oil tycoon, sat in an Italian leather armchair. His piercing eyes studied me intensely as I served the wine. "Yes, sir," I replied, keeping it professional. "I've been watching your work over the last few weeks." He motioned for me to come closer. "Your commitment to excellence is rare." I stayed silent, confused. There was nothing exceptional about my service. "I've got a proposal for you, something that will change your financial situation permanently." Harrison paused deliberately. "But not here. My driver will bring you to my residence tomorrow at 8 p.m. Be available." It wasn't an invitation. It was an order. When I left the suite, one of his assistants discreetly slipped an envelope into my pocket. Inside was an advance payment equal to 6 months of my salary. Harrison's mansion was a modernist palace overlooking the Persian Gulf. I was greeted by silent staff who led me through halls larger than the hotel I worked in. "Connor, welcome." Harrison appeared in casual clothes that probably cost more than my car, if I even had one. "I'd like to show you my collection." Over the next few weeks, our interactions followed a strange pattern. He'd invite me to dinner at his private table where we discussed literature, global politics, and art. He showed me his collection of rare cars, even letting me drive a vintage Ferrari. He introduced me to wines I'd never even dreamed of tasting. "You've got untapped potential," he commented during one dinner, noting how quickly I'd picked up the unspoken rules of his world. "You learn fast, you adapt." Very valuable qualities. At each meeting, I noticed how he subtly evaluated my reactions, my opinions. It was like an ongoing test with rules I didn't even know about. "So, what exactly do you expect from me?" I finally asked after our 5th meeting. The cash advance was long gone, and my curiosity had turned into impatience. Harrison smiled. "Straight to the point. I like that." He opened a leather folder containing legal documents. "I want to buy you, Connor." My stomach dropped. "Pardon?" "Not in that primitive way you imagine. I'm offering an exclusivity contract. You'll be available whenever and however I need you. In return, all your financial needs will be generously met." I swallowed hard. The proposal had implications I couldn't fully process. Doubts consumed me. Was I selling myself? What kind of services did he expect? The contract mentioned absolute confidentiality and exclusive availability, terms that were too broad for my comfort. "I need to think," I mumbled. "Of course," Harrison nodded. "But remember, opportunities like this don't come around twice. And you do have urgent financial responsibilities, don't you?" That night, Lying in my cramped apartment, I stared at the ceiling as conflicting thoughts warred in my mind. Freedom or security? Dignity or opportunity? The decision I made the next morning would change my destiny forever. 3 months passed since I signed the contract. My life changed completely. I traded the shared apartment for a suite in Alexander's mansion. My wardrobe went from polyester uniforms to tailor-made suits. My mother got a new apartment in San Diego and top-notch medical treatment at California's best hospital. That Friday night, Alexander organized a dinner with his closest partners. The tension was palpable. As the men discussed billion-dollar mergers around the dining table, I noticed their curious glances in my direction. I was no longer the invisible waiter. I had become the enigma next to the powerful Harrison. "Connor is my personal consultant, or for the American lifestyle," Alexander said, when one of his partners questioned my presence. His hand casually rested on my shoulder, a seemingly innocent gesture that sent a shiver down my spine. He's got an exceptional talent for adaptation. After the guests left, Alexander invited me to the main balcony of the mansion. The Dubai skyline glittered like a carpet of jewels under the night sky. He poured us 2 glasses of Remy, Martin Louis XIII cognac. "You impressed my partners tonight," he said, coming closer. "I noticed how you carried yourself. You learned well." "I just followed your instructions," I replied, feeling the warmth of the cognac spread through my chest. Alexander gently held my chin, his eyes studying my face as if searching for something. "When I first saw you at the hotel, I knew there was something different about you. Rare flexibility, the ability to transform." The air between us grew thick with unspoken possibilities. His nearness awakened feelings I'd been suppressing since our first meeting. The sea breeze carried his unique cologne, a mix of amber, oriental spices, and something only his. My hands trembled as I set the crystal glass on the table. "From the beginning, you knew exactly what you wanted from me, didn't you?" Alexander smiled, that enigmatic smile that never fully revealed his intentions. "I saw what you were. The rest was up to you." His fingers traced a path along my face, down to my neck. That touch, as light as a feather, carried the weight of irreversible decisions. There were no more excuses, no convenient ambiguities to hide behind. There, under the Dubai stars, with the empire of glass and steel as our witness, I finally understood the true nature of the contract I'd signed. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a declaration of ownership. Alexander's lips met mine with the confidence of someone who knows exactly what he wants and how to get it. His hands, used to shaping empires and bending wills, were now mapping every inch of my body with calculated precision. Every touch seemed to awaken nerve endings I didn't know existed. The world around us vanished. The distant city noise, the murmuring sea far below, everything made way for our synchronized breathing, for the rhythm that Alexander set with unquestionable authority. "You're extraordinary," he whispered in my ear as he led me into the main suite, a luxurious sanctuary I'd never allowed myself to enter before. The room, bathed in the soft light of Dubai streaming in through panoramic windows, felt like a temple. Silk, marble, and gold set the stage for what was about to happen. Alexander slid his hands over my shoulders, carefully removing the tailor-made jacket he'd chosen for me. "From the very first moment, I prepared you for this encounter," he confessed, deliberately unbuttoning my shirt. "Every gift, every lesson, every dinner, everything was for this moment." When our skin finally met, it was like 2 worlds colliding. His body told stories of power and privilege, marked by the confidence of someone who always gets what he wants. Mine revealed the journey of transformation, from an anonymous waiter to the object of desire for one of the most powerful men in the Middle East. Alexander led me to the huge bed that dominated the center of the room. The same hands that closed billion-dollar deals now traced constellations on my skin, uncovering pleasure zones I never knew existed. Every moan that escaped my lips seemed to satisfy him as much as any business conquest. "You belong to me now," he declared between kisses that trailed down my abdomen. "Not just on paper, not just by contract." Our bodies found a rhythm that went beyond words. Like waves crashing on the private beaches below us, We moved in perfect synchronization. Alexander directed our intimate dance like he commanded, his business, with relentless precision and absolute attention to detail. Pleasure built in layers, each one more intense than the one before. Alexander explored every inch of me, as if claiming territories unknown. His Arabic words, whispered against my skin, were incomprehensible to me, but their meaning was clear from the possessive tone and the almost religious intensity with which they were spoken. When we reached the peak together, it felt as if all of Dubai's lights exploded around us at once, a burst of sensations that erased any trace of who I had been before that night. My body arched against his, surrendering completely to the moment, to the reality I had chosen, or that had been meticulously crafted for me. Euphoria overwhelmed us, leaving us breathless and transformed. As we caught our breath, Alexander's fingers interlaced with mine, a surprisingly tender gesture from a man who rarely showed vulnerability. "Perfect," he murmured into my hair, his voice blending satisfaction with a barely perceptible relief. Exactly as I imagined. Dawn found us still tangled in each other's arms. The golden morning light filtered through the silk curtains, creating hypnotic patterns on our bodies. Alexander slept with a serenity he never showed when awake, a temporary suspension of his relentless tycoon mask. I watched his relaxed face, trying to process the depth of the transformation that had taken place. It wasn't just the physical act we'd shared, it was the fundamental change in the dynamic between us. The contract now felt like a mere formality compared to something much more complex and indefinable. Alexander woke, his eyes meeting mine immediately. There was no awkwardness in his gaze, just a kind of calm satisfaction. "Good morning," he said, his voice softer than usual. His fingers gently traced my face. "Did you sleep well?" "Yeah," I replied, still trying to navigate the new reality that was forming between us. Alexander got up with the feline grace he always possessed. Completely at ease in his nudity, he walked over to the windows and fully opened the curtains, flooding the room with desert light. "Come here," he called, extending his hand toward me. I joined him by the window, watching the surreal landscape of Dubai. The city looked like a mirage in the desert, a physical manifestation of human ambition, of the power to turn sand into glass and steel. "All of this," Alexander said as he gestured toward the horizon, "is built on agreements, Connor. Contracts, promises, understandings." His hand found mine. "What happened between us last night is also a kind of agreement. A deeper one than the paper you signed." I fell silent, absorbing his words and their implied meaning. Alexander continued, "You're not just an employee or a companion. You're an extension of my life, of my image. Do you understand the responsibility that comes with that?" I nodded slowly, beginning to grasp the true scope of the commitment I'd made. It wasn't just about physical availability or company. It was about becoming an integral part of the empire Alexander had built. "There are meetings in London next week," he informed me, shifting back to his usual pragmatic tone. "You're coming with me. I need you to learn about the business, to understand how I move in the world." As we had breakfast on the private balcony, discreetly observed by the staff who maintained carefully neutral expressions, I realized I had crossed an invisible boundary. I was no longer the employee who had been bought. I was something more complex, at once more intimate and more public. That same afternoon, a personal stylist showed up with a new collection of clothes. An Arabic teacher was hired for daily lessons. A personal trainer received specific instructions on how to shape my body to complement Alexander's image. The transformation that had started subtly was now fast-tracking in plain sight. "You're becoming what I need you to be," Alexander explained as he watched my first etiquette lesson for diplomatic dinners. "And in return, you get access to a world that few can even imagine." By the end of the day, when we returned to our private quarters, I noticed a change in the staff. The cautious respect had turned into a kind of deference. I had been elevated to a new status in the mansion's hierarchy. Not just a guest or an employee, but something indefinable and powerful by association. "What exactly are we doing, Alexander?" I finally asked when we were alone. He smiled, that enigmatic smile that never fully reached his eyes. We're creating something unique, Connor. A partnership, a symbiosis. His fingers traced my lips with reverence. You're my biggest personal investment. That night, as we surrendered to each other once again, there was a new dimension to our connection. A sharper awareness of the implications, the mutual benefits, and the shared risks. The following months were a roller coaster of experiences that challenged everything I previously understood about the world. I accompanied Alexander to meetings in London, Paris, and Tokyo. I learned how to navigate powerful circles, to read the unspoken codes of the ultra-rich, and to serve as the perfect extension of Alexander's imposing presence. Our relationship evolved into something that defied conventional definitions. We were lovers, yes, but also partners in an elaborate performance for the world of international business. I learned the secrets of financial empires while becoming a well-kept secret among Alexander and his inner circles. On one particularly tense night in Monaco, after a negotiation that secured Alexander control over a strategic refinery, he handed me an envelope as we gazed out at the Mediterranean from our suite's balcony. "What's this?" I asked, opening the envelope to find plane tickets and documents. "A choice," Alexander replied, his expression as unreadable as ever. "Tickets to San Diego. Your mom is completely recovered now. You could go back, start over. There's enough money to open that restaurant you always dreamed of." I froze, unable to process what I was hearing. After everything we'd shared, after the complete transformation of my life, he was offering an exit. "Why?" I managed to say at last. Alexander turned to me, his piercing eyes studying my reaction like always at crucial moments. "Because I need to know if you're staying by choice, not because of a contractual obligation. The document in your hand cancels our original agreement. You can leave now if you want, with enough resources to build the life you planned before we met." The proposal hung between us like a cloud heavy with possibilities and consequences. I looked down at the tickets in my hand, at the shimmering city below, at the man who had remade my life in his image. "And if I stay?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. An almost imperceptible smile touched Alexander's lips. "Then we rewrite the contract, as equals, not as owner and property." That night I didn't make an impulsive decision. I asked for time to reflect, and Alexander, always strategic, gave me 3 days. I walked alone through the streets of Monaco, thinking about everything I'd been through, about who I'd become, about who I could still be. I called my mom, listened to her voice, stronger from her recovery, and heard about her new plans and friends. She was building a new life, just like I was. On the 3rd day, I went back to the hotel and found Alexander working on his laptop, impeccably dressed as always. "I've decided," I announced, placing the envelope on the table. Alexander slowly closed his laptop, his eyes never leaving mine. There was a tension in his shoulders, the first sign of uncertainty I'd ever seen in him. "And what's your decision, Connor?" "I'm staying," I declared, watching as the tension left his shoulders almost imperceptibly, but not the way it was before. In the days that followed, with discreet lawyers and carefully drafted documents, we established a new dynamic. It wasn't a shabby ownership contract anymore, but a genuine partnership. Alexander opened doors for me in parts of his business where I proved my aptitude. I learned about finance, corporate strategy, international negotiation, not just as a bystander, but as an active participant. Our personal relationship evolved too. The lines of power became more fluid, more reciprocal. There was still a fundamental asymmetry. Alexander remained the billionaire, and I the former waiter. But now there was a respect that went beyond that disparity. A year after that first wine delivery on the hotel's penthouse, I find myself managing a hospitality division of the Harrison Empire, applying my past experience on a scale I never imagined. I still share Alexander's bed, still travel with him around the globe, and continue to represent an extension of his presence in the world. Sometimes, as I look out the window at our penthouses in Dubai, London, or New York, I reflect on the journey that brought me here, on how a seemingly simple decision, personally delivering a bottle of wine, completely changed the course of my life. I don't fool myself into thinking I possess the same power as Alexander. I now understand that in the world of the ultra-rich, even the most egalitarian partnerships have subtle hierarchies. I realize that part of my worth to him lies in who I became under his influence, in how I complement his image and his needs. But I also recognize my own growth, my own transformation. The insecure, financially vulnerable waiter is no more. In his place stands a man who learned to navigate deep waters, who developed skills and confidence that no hotel salary could ever provide. Alexander taught me the most valuable lesson about power. Those who truly have it rarely need to show it. Real control doesn't come from contracts or threats. It comes from the ability to turn desires into necessities, to make the optional essential. With each new dawn in a different country, with every meeting with global leaders, with every night in the arms of the man who changed my life, I remember one fundamental truth. In the game of power and seduction, those who think they're in control are often the ones being controlled. The deepest influence is the kind we don't even realize is being exerted on us. And for you who've watched until now, I ask, how far would you go for a complete transformation of your life? What commitments would you accept in exchange for extraordinary opportunities? The line between being valued and being owned is thinner than we imagine, and many of us cross it every day without even noticing. If this story stirred something in you, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. The decisions we make when we're vulnerable shape our destinies more deeply than any carefully planned scheme. Subscribe for more narratives that explore the complexities of human relationships and the choices that change us irrevocably. Until the next story, remember, sometimes our biggest leaps of growth happen when we embrace proposals that, at first glance, seem terrifying. The question is, are we really aware of the price we agree to pay?